a socialist. You say that you are a socialist. What is a socialist? What is that?
I would say it's someone who thinks that people and their communities should own the resources and should also own the means of making those resources, that we should earn everything we work for. That while we work, we should get everything that we had worked for, instead of just receiving a small check from a boss that doesn't even cover everything that we put in work for, and that we should be able to not struggle to afford resources. And
But
so
that's not a socialist.
that's exactly what a
A
socialist is.
socialist is controlled and owned, not necessarily owned, but controlled by someone else or the government, and the government provides for you. It's ownership, control.
So if you Google socialism, it'll say that the workers should own the means of production, and that was my simpler way of putting it. That of people, the community owning the resources and the means of making those resources. That's actually what socialism is.
You believe in liberation theology, I read.
Yeah.
And what is liberation theology? And you said that it saved your life. What is it, and how did it save your life?
Liberation theology is simply interpreting the Bible and theology from the perspective of the poor and the oppressed. And I discovered it as I was learning theology in the Bible early on. And it was started in the 1960s in Latin America during Vatican II. But the reason was because of how much of the church has sided with the rich and powerful and ignored the poor and the oppressed. And so this had to become a distinct theology only because of the way that the church has done that. But when I look at the Bible, the whole thing is written from the perspective of the poor and the oppressed. Jesus was poor and oppressed his whole life. So eventually it just feels like basic theology.
Jesus was not poor and oppressed.
Jesus was not poor?
Not oppressed either.
How was Jesus not? Was Jesus rich?
Yes, very much so. And he was never oppressed. How can an oppressed man tell you to be free when he's oppressed? Where did you get that idea that he was poor and oppressed?
How did he get killed then if he wasn't oppressed?
Because
he was oppressed by the Roman government, wasn't he?
He was killed by people who hated the truth. But I want to know where did you get this idea that he was poor and oppressed?
So the people who hated the truth, the Roman government, were in power, and they used their power to abuse him and arrest him and kill him. That's definitely a lot of oppression.
Where did you get the idea that he was poor and oppressed in the Bible?
From reading it.
And it says that Jesus was poor and oppressed?
It says Jesus had to be provided for the whole way of his ministry. And he was abused, arrested, and killed by the Roman government.
And did you say that Jesus was poor? I mean, did the Bible say that Jesus was poor and oppressed? Or that's what you came up with after reading it?
It described him being poor, and it described him being oppressed.
And so you got that from reading that in the Bible, the way they described him? You're like, oh, Jesus is poor and oppressed. Would you follow a poor and oppressed man?
I follow him because he had good news for everyone that's poor and oppressed.
And what was that good news?
That the oppression on us by those in power does not define us, that God defines us, and that we are actually free and children of God and worthy of love and belonging and worthy of justice. So it's like, no matter what our governments say, no matter what our governments say, God says something else, right? Don't you agree with that?
Absolutely. But God would nor his son are poor and oppressed. Who wanted a poor and oppressed God?
That's just how it was. That's just how God chose to become incarnated.
Could you possibly be wrong?
Could I possibly be wrong? Possibly, yeah.
Okay. And so how did it save you? Liberation theology, it saved your life. How?
Because I grew up with theological perspectives that didn't give theology from the perspective of the poor and the oppressed. It just gave a lot of favor to the powerful, and said that being a Christian meant getting the powerful to become Christian and then making everybody Christian. And I didn't like that. I hated that. And so finding liberation theology is what saved my faith, because I was able to realize there are other ways of talking about Christianity. And it makes way more sense when I read the Bible, liberation theology.
Amazing. At what age did you start believing this way?
Probably around 22. I'm 27 now.
Oh, okay. And you said that you and your parents became Christians because you were searching for freedom, right?
My parents were, when I was very young, yes.
They were searching for freedom, not you.
I was like 2 years old.
Oh,
They were both drug addicts and alcoholics and troubled all the time, and so they wanted to live differently. And so my mom's sister had been going to church, and so they decided to start going to church, and they learned how to overcome some of those addictions and personal issues that they had. And so that's why they started going to church. And so right. I grew up in that environment that said to go to church means to work on yourself and to grow and develop and not stay stuck.
And what is freedom?
Freedom for my parents was freedom from addiction.
How about for you? What is freedom? Are you free?
Not as free as I'd like to be. I'm free from addictions. I don't have any addiction problems, so that's awesome. And I give a lot of credit for my parents for raising me right in that way. But I also wish I was more free. I wish that we didn't have to struggle so hard in order to have resources to survive.
And so how are you not free? What part of you is not free? That is not free.
I don't feel free because of how much we have to struggle for resources.
When you say we, who are you referring to?
All of us in the United States, all of us under a system of capitalism. That's how it works.
Oh, you don't like capitalism?
No.
Bird.
Why? Do you like capitalism, Jesse?
I love capitalism. Believe me.
Why do you love it?
Because it gives me freedom.
Oh, how?
To be my own, to earn as much as I want, to do what I want, to say yes or no to what I want, and no one else have to tell me how much I can or cannot have, when, where, and how, and control me.
Mm.
That's what capitalism is all about. I can be as rich as I want, as poor as I want. It's on me and not someone else to provide for me. As a man, you like being provided for?
No. I like being able to... Part of it is I like to be able to work and get what I earn instead of just through whatever amount a boss says I should get. That's part of it. But then another part of it is me being Christian and seeing that God put all these resources on this earth so that people may have them, not to privatize them and hoard resources and keep them from others.
And so you think that God want the working class folk to give all their stuff to the lazy folks?
I think God wants everyone to be provided for, and the people who believe in God should be the first ones to try to find ways to structure the system that everyone has what they need to survive.
That's why we have capitalism.
How does capitalism help
I don't understand
the homeless?
So what now?
How does capitalism help the homeless?
By locking them up when they commit crimes and things like that.
What about when they don't commit crimes?
It's not capitalist fault that people are homeless and drug addicts and alcoholics. That's due to the lack of good parenting while they were growing up. They have conflict and they're trying to escape by becoming homeless or using drugs and alcohol and all that kind of thing. You can't blame that on capitalism.
But you said capitalism helps them. So how can
capitalism those that help them
themselves if they don't commit crimes?
It helps those that help themselves. Socialism destroys the character. Capitalism builds it up.
I think capitalism has destroyed a lot of people's characters, and it's because of capitalism, the inability to afford resources to survive, that a lot of people are homeless, and they work really, really hard to get a job, to make some money, to get resources, but they can't, because once you're homeless, it just gets worse and worse.
Are you saying that's due to high taxes and things like that?
I think that's part of it. It's due to a lot of things.
You don't seem to understand what socialism is.
I do. I think you don't seem to understand what socialism is.
Do you want the government taking care of you?
No.
Do you want Christians to take care of you?
No.
Do you want the working class to take care of you?
No.
Then what do you want?
I think there's a lot of ways that we have to allow corporations and the government to take care of us right now.
How?
Because we have to give our labor to a company in order to survive.
What?
We have to sell our labor to a business that will take us in order to make money so we could use that money to eat and live.
And what's wrong with that?
That we have to, instead of being able to structure a system that we all get food and housing and water and resources to live.
So you want it without earning it?
I think we have a structure that is so amazing that we've built through industrialization that we can get it to everyone.
So do you want it without earning it?
I think, do I want it without? I want resources to survive without earning it, because I want everyone to have resources to survive without earning it.
So you want free stuff without earning it. Here you are, a Mexican Christian Socialist YouTuber and streamer, and you want it without earning it.
When you say free stuff, though, I'm talking about housing and food and water. I think we have a system set up that everyone can get a house.
No, do you want, you personally, you want free housing and food and all that?
Yes, and I want everyone to have free housing. I want everyone to, not just me.
But nothing is free.
I want you to have free housing, Jesse.
Nothing is free.
Right now.
Somebody got to earn it to give it to you.
I think we've structured the system to a point right now that we have to work really hard in order to afford housing. And a lot of people can't afford housing, even though they work really hard and have multiple jobs. They still can't afford housing. They still have to rent from others. And so
that's because of taxes and whatever. They need to make the government cut back on the taxes and all those things where people can keep more of their money. That doesn't mean we have to go to a socialist system.
Right. So we both see that people are financially struggling. I think we just see differently how to get them out of that struggling.
And so is there a country or a location somewhere in the world where socialism is working?
Not yet.
Well, what makes you think it will work then? If it's not working, it's been tried over the years, a long time, and it's not working yet, why would you want to go with a system that you know doesn't work or won't work?
There's a whole lot of factors that stop them from trying, including the United States military, who has gone into countries who are attempting a socialist society and totally ruined it, or cut off resources, or killed their leaders. And when we look back at the transition from feudalism to capitalism, there are plenty of attempts at capitalist societies that failed. So you are
against capitalism. It's weird to see a male being against capitalism. That sounds like a beta male.
I think, I said, I learned as a Christian that we should keep growing and keep developing and keep learning. I think we've reached a point where we're able to transition to a new economic system. Capitalism wasn't always here. There was feudalism before capitalism, and we got to a point where we're able to finally transition to capitalism. Now, I feel like we can finally transition to socialism.
Amazing.